In the Yoruba village of Ajala Oke, there is a necklace that cannot be destroyed. They've burned it. The flames turned blue and died. They've buried it. It returned by morning. They've thrown it into the river. It came back before sunset. The necklace is beautiful. 27 blood-red coral beads and an ivory pendant shaped like a woman's face. But her expression changes. Sometimes she smiles. Sometimes she screams. For 3 generations, this necklace has passed from person to person, and every owner dies within 27 days. Not naturally, not peacefully, but in ways no one can explain. Now, it has chosen again. A woman named Folashade. She's had it for 23 days. She didn't take it. It appeared on her neck while she slept. And now, it won't come off. The chain won't break. The clasp won't open. Folashade has 4 days left to live. Unless she can solve the mystery, no one else could. Who made it? Why it kills? And how to break a curse that refuses to die. Because to understand the necklace, we must go back. 75 years ago, Ajala Oke was a prosperous trading village. Merchants traveled from distant lands to buy Ajala Oke's famous indigo dye, hand-woven cloth, and carved ivory. The village was rich, peaceful, and proud. The chief of Ajala Oke was Adeyemi, a just man with 4 wives and 9 children. His youngest daughter, Ayomade, was known throughout the region for her beauty. Men came from neighboring kingdoms with bride prices of cattle, gold, and land. But Ayomade refused them all. "I will marry for love," she told her father, "or I will not marry at all." Adeyemi indulged her. She was his favorite. After all, Mama and he was wealthy enough that her bride price didn't matter financially. Then Olumide arrived in the village. He was a merchant from the coast, handsome and charming, with smooth words and an easy smile. He brought exotic goods from across the sea, silk from distant lands, spices that made food taste like heaven, and jewelry more beautiful than anything Ajala Oke's craftsmen could create. Ayomide fell in love at first sight. Within 3 weeks, they were married. Olumide paid an enormous bride price, more than any suitor before him, and the village celebrated for 7 days. On the wedding night, Olumide gave Ayomide a gift, a necklace of 27 blood-red coral beads strung on pure gold, with an ivory centerpiece carved in the shape of a woman's face. "This has been in my family for generations," Olumide said, as he fastened it around her neck. "It's the most precious thing I own, and now it belongs to the most precious person in my life." Ayomide wore the necklace every day. She loved it more than any of her other jewelry. She would touch the ivory face absent-mindedly while thinking, trace the coral beads while speaking, admire her reflection in polished brass to see how it caught the light. People noticed she was wearing it constantly, even to bed, even to the river, even during cooking. But they assumed it was simply because she loved her husband and wanted to honor his gift. They didn't notice the other changes, how Ayomide grew quieter, more withdrawn, how she stopped laughing at jokes, stopped singing while she worked, stopped visiting her friends, how her eyes took on a distant, no haunted quality, as if she was seeing something no one else could see, how she would wake in the night screaming about a woman's voice calling her name, begging for something, demanding something. On the 27th day after her wedding, Ayomide was found dead in her compound. She had hanged herself from the rafters of her hut, the necklace still fastened around her throat. But here's the strange part. The rope she used was tied above where she hung. The stools she supposedly stood on was across the room. There was no way she could have physically arranged her own death that way. Yet no one else had been in the hut. No one had heard a struggle. No one could explain how she died if she hadn't killed herself. The village mourned. Olumide wept. Ayomide was buried with honors. And the necklace should have been buried with her. That was the custom. A wife's jewelry goes to the grave. But when they tried to remove it for burial, they discovered something terrible. The necklace wouldn't come off. The clasp was fused shut. The chain was unbreakable. They buried Ayomide with the necklace still around her neck. 3 days later, the necklace appeared on the neck of Olumide's second wife. Olumide, devastated by Ayomide's death, had quickly remarried, a practical decision as he needed a wife to manage his household. Her name was Titilayo, and she was kind, sensible, and had no particular interest in jewelry, which made it all the more disturbing when she woke up on the 4th morning after Ayomide's funeral, with the coral necklace fastened around her throat. "I didn't put this on," Titilayo insisted, pulling at the clasp. I would never, Olumide. This was Ayomide's. Why is it on me?" Olumide's face went white. "We buried it with her." They ran to Ayomide's grave. It was undisturbed. No signs of digging, no evidence anyone had opened it. But when they opened the grave themselves, a grave sacrilege, but they had to know, they found Ayomide's body exactly as they'd left it. Except the necklace was gone from her neck. "Take it off," Olumide demanded, grabbing at the necklace on Titilayo's throat. "Take it off now." But the clasp wouldn't open, the chain wouldn't break. No matter how hard they pulled, how much force they used, the necklace remained perfectly intact. "It's cursed," Titilayo whispered, terror in her eyes. "Your first wife's spirit has cursed me." "No," Olumide said quickly. "No, that can't be. Ayomide loved me. She wouldn't." But even as he spoke, he remembered Ayomide's last weeks. The nightmares, the screaming, the way she clutched the necklace and whispered to herself in a language he didn't recognize. Something had been wrong, and he'd ignored it. And now, Titilayo began experiencing the same symptoms Ayomide had. The withdrawal, the nightmares, the constant touching of the necklace, as if she couldn't stop herself. And on the 27th day after the necklace appeared on her neck, Titilayo died. She drowned in her own hut. No water nearby, no explanation, just her body soaked through, lungs full of water that couldn't have come from anywhere, and the necklace still around her neck, completely dry. The village was terrified now. They tried to bury the necklace with Titilayo, but like before, it wouldn't come off. So they buried her with it, hoping that would be the end. About 5 days later, it appeared on the neck of Chief Adeyemi's eldest remaining daughter. Then, 27 days after that, on his youngest son. Then, on the village healer. Then, on a young bride newly married. The pattern was clear. The necklace chose its victims seemingly at random, appeared around their necks while they slept, couldn't be removed, and killed them in 27 days through impossible means. Olumide, racked with guilt, tried everything to stop it. He consulted powerful babalawo, spiritual priests from across the region. They tried exorcisms, rituals, sacrifices. Nothing worked. Finally, one old priestess told him the truth he didn't want to hear. This necklace was cursed long before it came to your village. You didn't create the curse, but you activated it by giving it to someone you loved. Now, it feeds on love, on connection, on the bonds between people, and it will never stop until the original wrong is righted. What wrong? Olumide begged. Tell me what to do. But the priestess shook her head. I don't know what wrong was done. I only know that such a curse, one that survives death, survives burial, survives 3 generations, is not about revenge. It's about justice. Someone was wronged so terribly that even death couldn't satisfy the debt. Olumide left Ajala Oke in shame. He was never seen again, but a necklace remained. And over the next 75 years, it claimed 43 lives. Folashade had 23 days with the necklace, and she'd spent them searching for answers. She was a school teacher, educated, rational, not prone to superstition. But there was nothing rational about waking up with a necklace you couldn't remove, slowly killing you. She tried everything the previous victims had tried: acid, fire, swords, prayers. The necklace remained perfect, beautiful, unbreakable. So Folashade did what none of the others had done. She started researching the necklace's history systematically. If it was 75 years old, there had to be records, trade ledgers, family stories, something. She interviewed the oldest people in Ajala Oke, the ones who'd been children when Ayomai died. She searched through the village archives. She even traveled to coastal trading posts, asking about merchants who'd sold jewelry 7 decades ago. What she discovered chilled her to the bone. Olumide, the merchant who'd first brought the necklace to Ajala Oke, hadn't made his fortune through honest trade. He'd been a slaver. In the decades before colonial powers officially ended the slave trade, Olumide had bought and sold human beings, hundreds of them. He'd raid inland villages, chain people together, and march them to the coast where European ships waited. One of those raided villages had been called Ile Oba, a small settlement known for its craftsmen and its fierce independence. Olumide's raid on Ile Oba had been brutal. He'd burned the village, killed those who fought back, and chained everyone else for the march to the coast. Among the captives was a woman named Morenike, the village's master jeweler. According to the few records Folashade could find, Morenike had crafted extraordinary pieces, necklaces, bracelets, crowns that were sought after by kings. She'd had a daughter, barely 2 years old, who was also taken in the raid. During the march to the coast, Morenike's daughter died. Starvation, disease, or simple cruelty. The records didn't say. But the child died, and Morenike went mad with grief. She begged Olumide to let her bury her daughter properly, to perform the rituals, to honor her child's passage to the ancestors. Olumide refused. Bodies were waste. They slowed down the march. The child's corpse was simply left by the roadside for animals to scatter. That night, Morenike slit her wrists with a piece of broken shell. Before she died, she'd used her own blood to craft one final piece of jewelry, 27 coral beads, one for each year of her life. Strung on gold wire she'd stolen from Olumide's supplies. With a centerpiece carved from her daughter's baby tooth, the only piece of her child she had left. As she died, Morenike spoke a curse in her village's ancient language. The exact words were lost, but their meaning was clear. This necklace is my daughter. My daughter is this necklace. Anyone who wears it will know what it is to lose a child, to be helpless, to be denied even the dignity of grief. This necklace will never rest until my daughter is properly buried, until her death is honored, until the wrong is made right. Morenike died. The necklace was found with her body, beautiful and perfect and cursed. Olumide, not understanding what he'd taken, kept the necklace, sold it in markets. Eventually, decided to give it to his new bride as a wedding gift. And the curse began its terrible work. If you're already feeling the weight of this story, take a moment to pause and support it. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves deep African folklore. Stories like this carry history, and your support helps keep them alive. Folashade sat in the village archive, surrounded by old documents and testimony, and felt the weight of what she discovered. The necklace wasn't just cursed, it was a tomb, a memorial, a mother's final act of love, twisted into something terrible by grief and injustice. The ivory centerpiece wasn't just carved into the shape of a woman's face. It was carved from a child's tooth, Moriniki's daughter's tooth. The necklace was literally made from the mother's blood and the daughter's body. No wonder it couldn't be destroyed. It wasn't just an object. It was a soul trapped, demanding what had been denied: proper burial, proper honor, proper rest. Folashade touched the necklace around her throat. She'd been unconsciously doing it more and more, just like all the previous victims, and felt it warm under her fingers. The ivory face seemed to shift, and for just a moment, Folashade saw not a woman, but a child. A 2-year-old girl with her mother's eyes, looking at Folashade with an expression that was both pleading and threatening. "Bury me," the expression said. "Honor me, or become me." "I understand," Folashade whispered. "I understand now." But understanding wasn't enough. The previous victims had probably understood too. Eventually, understanding the curse didn't break it. She needed to do what Moreniki had demanded 75 years ago: bury the child properly, perform the rituals, honor the death. The problem: the child's body had been scattered by animals decades ago. There was nothing left to bury, except Folashade looked down at the necklace, at the ivory centerpiece made from the child's tooth. The child was right here, had been here all along. The necklace itself was the body. The coral beads were the bones. The gold wire was the blood. The ivory centerpiece was the soul. To bury the child, she had to bury the necklace, properly this time, with honor, with ritual, with the acknowledgement of the wrong that had been done. But how do you bury something that reappears every time it's buried? Folashade had 4 days to figure it out. Folashade consulted with Afeoluwa, the village's current spiritual priest, a young woman who'd inherited her position and was more willing than her predecessors to try radical solutions. Well, the necklace returns because the burial isn't proper, Ifeoluwa said after hearing Folashade's research. Burying it without acknowledging what it is, without honoring the child it represents, that's not a burial, that's just hiding. So, what do? We acknowledge the crime. We name the child. We give her what her mother wanted: proper rituals, proper burial, proper passage to the ancestors. But we don't know the child's name. Ifeoluwa touched the necklace gently. The ivory face seemed warm under her fingers. "We ask her," she said simply. That night, with 3 days remaining before Folashade would die, the entire village gathered for a ceremony unlike any in Ajala Oke's history. They lit fires, poured libations, sang songs of mourning for a child who died 75 years ago, unmourned, unburied, and denied even the dignity of a name. And Ifeoluwa spoke directly to the necklace. "Child of Morenike, daughter of Ileoba, we acknowledge you. We honor your death. We grieve the injustice done to you and your mother. Tell us your name, so we may speak it. Let us give you what was denied: proper burial, proper passage, proper rest. The air grew cold, the fires flickered, and Folashade felt the necklace move against her throat. Not physically, but spiritually. It was like the necklace was breathing, was alive, was finally being acknowledged as what it was. Not a curse, but a child. A voice spoke, not aloud, but in everyone's mind at once. A child's voice, small and tired. My name was Aduni. It means sweet one. My mother called me a sweet one, a precious one. And when I died, no one said my name. No one sang my songs. No one cried for me. I was waste. I was nothing. Tears streamed down Folashade's face. Down many faces in the gathered crowd. You were not nothing, Ifeoluwa said firmly. You were Aduni. You were loved. You were precious. And we name you now. We honor you now. We cry for you now. The villagers began to chant, Aduni, 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 speaking her name. Finally, will you bury me? The child's voice asked. And there was so much hope in it, so much longing. Will you let me rest? Yes, Folashade said, but you have to let me take off the necklace first. You have to release me. I didn't choose you, Aduni's voice said. The necklace chooses. It finds people who have lost children, or who fear losing children, or who carry grief about children. It wants them to understand what my mother felt. But I'm tired. I don't want to hurt anyone anymore. I just want to sleep. Then let us help you sleep, Folashade said gently. Let us give you the burial your mother wanted. Let us make this right. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the necklace grew warm, not burning, but like the warmth of a living child's skin. The clasp clicked open. For the first time in 75 years, the necklace came off willingly. Folashade held it in her hands, this beautiful, terrible thing, and felt the weight of all the lives it had taken, all the grief it had caused, all the years it had waited for someone to finally understand. We will bury you with honor, Folashade promised, with ritual, with love. You will finally rest, Aduni. The child's voice whispered one more time. Thank you. The next morning, now the village prepared a grave in the children's section of the cemetery. The place where Aduni should have been buried 7 decades ago if she died at home instead of on a slave march. They carved a headstone with her name, Aduni, the daughter of Morenike, beloved child, finally at rest. They wrapped the necklace in white cloth, the burial cloth for children, and performed all the rituals that had been denied. Songs were sung, prayers were offered, libations were poured. Folashade, still weak from her 23 days wearing the necklace, placed it in the grave herself. Sleep, little one, she whispered. Your mother's love has carried you far enough. Now rest. They covered the grave with earth. And this time, the necklace stayed buried. Days passed, then weeks, then months. The grave remained undisturbed. No one woke with a necklace around their throat. No one heard a child's voice calling in the night. Aduni was finally at rest. 10 years after the burial, Folashade stood at Aduni's grave with her daughter, a child she'd had 5 years after surviving the necklace, a daughter she'd named Uyanu, which means miracle. Tell me the story again, Mama, Yanu said, touching the headstone gently. Folashade had told her daughter the story many times, but she told it again now, about Morenik and her daughter, about the slave trade's cruelty, about a mother's love twisted into a curse, about how justice delayed isn't justice denied. It just takes longer to arrive. Why did the necklace keep killing people? Iyanu asked. If Aduni was just a child, why did she hurt so many? Because pain needs somewhere to go, Folashade explained. Yet Morenike's pain, Aduni's pain, it couldn't just disappear. It needed witnesses. It needed people to understand what had been done. Every person who wore that necklace experienced what Morenike felt: helplessness, grief, the unbearable weight of losing a child and being denied even the dignity of mourning. That's sad. It is sad, but it's also a reminder. Folashade gestured to the village around them, bustling and peaceful. Evil doesn't just disappear when we stop looking at it. The slave trade ended, but the pain it caused lived on, in places like this necklace, in stories, in generational trauma. We have to acknowledge what was done, name it, honor those who suffered, or the pain finds other ways to survive. Iyanu was quiet for a moment, then asked the question that had haunted Folashade for years. If someone had buried Aduni properly the first time, right after she died, would the necklace have ever been cursed? No, Folashade said softly. That's the tragedy. All of this, all 43 deaths, 75 years of terror, could have been prevented if Olumide had just let Morenike bury her daughter, if he'd shown even the smallest amount of compassion to a grieving mother. So it wasn't really Aduni's fault. No, my sweet, it wasn't. She was a victim. The necklace was a victim. They were all victims of a cruelty so great, it created its own kind of immortality. They placed flowers on the grave, a tradition that had developed in Ajala Oke. Aduni's grave was the most visited in the cemetery, and especially by mothers who came to honor the child who'd never been honored in life. As they walked away, Yano asked one more question. Do you think Aduni is happy now? For she had thought about the voice she'd heard that night 10 years ago. The child's voice, tired and hopeful, asking permission to finally rest. I think she's at peace, Folashade said. And sometimes that's the best kind of happy. 20 years after the burial, the village of Ajala Oke built a small museum dedicated to their history, including the painful parts. One section of the museum tells the story of Aduni and the cursed necklace. There are documents Folashade recovered during her research, testimonies from survivors, a carved replica of what the necklace looked like. No one dared disturb the actual grave to display the real thing. But the most powerful part of the exhibit is a simple statement on the wall. Aduni, daughter of Morenike, died at age 2 during the march to coastal slave ships. Her death was considered insignificant by those who caused it. Her mother disagreed. Her mother's love and grief created a curse that lasted 3 generations, not as revenge, but as witness. This curse ended only when we finally acknowledged what was done, spoke Aduni's name, and gave her the burial she deserved. Evil requires witnesses. Justice requires acknowledgement. Peace requires honoring even the smallest, most forgotten victims. May Aduni rest well. May we remember well. May we do better. Visitors to the museum often cry when they read this. Many leave flowers at a memorial portrait of Aduni, an artist's rendering based on descriptions from the necklace's face, showing a 2-year-old girl with bright eyes and a gentle smile. She looks nothing like a curse. She looks like what she was, a child who deserved better. And now, finally, she has it. And so, dear listener, we've reached the end of Aduni's story. Though, it's really Morenike's story, and Folashade's story, and the story of everyone who suffered because of one terrible act of cruelty that went unacknowledged for 7 decades. The cursed necklace of Ajala Oke teaches us this. Unacknowledged pain doesn't disappear. It just finds new ways to make itself known. Moraniki's grief over her daughter's death wasn't resolved when Moraniki died. It survived in the necklace she crafted with her dying breath. It spread to 43 victims over 3 generations. It haunted an entire village for 75 years. All because one man couldn't show compassion to a grieving mother, couldn't let her bury her child with dignity. That's the true horror of this story, not the supernatural curse, but the ordinary cruelty that created it.